And we are live. Welcome, friends, to the Collector Series. I am DPZ. You can find me at PC with DPZ. And with me, I have Ken.
Hey, Dennis, how's it going?
Good, good. You know what? You could have put your tag from Instagram on there, but that's okay. No one's going to know where to find you. You just
Right.
put Ken.
It's just a collector series. It's Ken. There's only one Ken.
There's only one Ken, apparently. Yeah, no, I think maybe get a little closer to the camera there. Can't really hear you all that great, but I want. Okay, so I'll let everybody know this is actually going to be kind of a fun episode because Ken and I are really good friends. We talk about cards a lot offline. We both work together, and we're actually both at school together at the same time right now, which is kind of fun. So
And,
he's in
and,
the dorm
and
room
in
right
need
next to.
of in need of a break from a long 2 weeks of school.
In need of a break, yeah. So when we, between classes and during dinner and lunch and whatnot, we from time to time talk about cards. We talk about the hobby. And last night we had dinner. And last night we started talking about this Bowman Transcendent set that Ken has that he got from. And so before I go into last night, let's sort of let's go back and create the picture of Ken, the collector, your origin story, where you came from. Why don't you just kind of walk us through your hobby experience in the past, now, what you've been doing lately? I mean, I obviously know, but we're going to tell everybody who's listening to this episode. You're obviously not a hobby personality, and that's okay. I wanted to get just a collector on here. It is a collector series, so that's kind of what the whole point is. So why don't you walk us through your journey?
Yeah, so early collecting. I moved to Seattle area in 1984 from California, and began delivering the Seattle Post Intelligence, or Seattle PI, on my little paper route. I'm 7, 8 years old, and I have to go collect manually for the monthly paper. And this lady says, "Well, do you want some baseball cards instead of your payment?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I want some baseball cards." So this lady just was wholesaling, 87 tops. Yeah, she had all kinds of stuff, but I mean that was kind of the year. So I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. And so she began paying me every month with a box of baseball cards for my delivery to her route. And I took those home, and then I was in a little private Christian school. We started talking baseball cards. Mariners were obviously in 1986. Topps teams Mariner set was actually my very first baseball cards at all. But anyway, I started collecting and got a lot of cards because this lady was giving me a box or two of cards every month, and I did that paper route for several years. So I'm big on numbers. I made little spreadsheets about all my players. I organized them. The organization part was very appealing to me. I had them in monster boxes, by number, by player, and then everybody at my little school collected cards and loved baseball. So that's kind of the very beginning of getting into the hobby, anyway.
Got it. And so you got rid of all your cards, right? And then you exited the hobby.
Well, before I get to that, yes, I did at the end of the 90s, but all through, 89 Upper Deck comes out. That was early on. I mean, that's definitely part of the origin story. I mean, that was a massive transition, as everyone knows, into what kind of cards there could be. And, cards didn't have to come with gum that was not fun to chew in the pack. And then, of course, Griffey became part of that. And so, so then I collected through high school, into college, and then got married and had a kid. And by the end of the late 90s, I'm like, I really can't spend all this money on cards. And of course, cards in terms of price went significantly up during those years, as did the quality. The quality of cards was outstanding. And I had 90s Sonics were outstanding. And so the basketball cards also became a thing, even though baseball was always first and foremost what I collected. So I had a lot of the really cool 90s basketball cards. And then, to put a real damper on the end of my initial story here, I basically was like, okay, I'm spending too much money on this. And so I gave all of the cards, like 15 monster boxes of cards, to my neighbor kid some 12-year-old kid who lived next door to me. And I did take the hard cases to a shop, just like at $300, which did not in any way represent the value. And that was just to break the habit of buying cards. And that was late 1999.
Great. So fast forward to what, 2020?
Yeah, I met this guy named DPZ, and he started talking cards with me, and I was resistant. I'm like, no, I already know Dennis. I already know I already know that I'll love it. It's going to be fun to talk about. But Dennis was persistent with me. So he mailed me free cards. He sent me like Conseco and Smoltz graded these old Fleer cards, and like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then he started talking about his collection and the different things and what's going on in the hobby. And I'm like, well, my son, Ben, he's into baseball. He'd probably enjoy it. So I bought a box of 2020 Allen and Ginter.
Remember that?
Yes. And that was fun, even though the cards are cool. I like the nostalgic kind of old school style of those, but they also have a lot of funky cards in there with fruits and animals and weird stuff, and I wasn't into that. I was like, oh, this is dumb. But anyway, there were some cool cards in there, and we got an autograph. In fact, I got a Rod Carew autograph, I was like, wow, Rod Carew. And then I was like, okay, Rod Carew's worth $50. That's weird.
We're gonna talk about that later.
Yeah. So yeah, and so then that kind of, I still was okay, but you were persistent with me, Dennis. So what really got me hooked was the prospecting with Bowman, and that really wasn't you, Dennis. I started learning more about what was going on, and that part of, I'd never collected minor leaguers. I mean, back in the late 80s, early 90s, you either couldn't get minor leaguers or there were some team set from the local minor leagues. You go to the game and get some minor league cards or something, or every once in a while somebody traded you some funky card of somebody from a minor league. But the prospecting and the Bowman firsts and then the colors and all that kind of was like, oh, that was intriguing to me. So I kind of went Bowman nuts for the last 18 months. So
yeah, and folks, he literally went from a novice to like the foremost expert, and
yes.
To the point where I was asking him questions like, what do you think of this guy? What do you think of this guy? He became the guy. He became Mr. Bowman. He had this like operation for selling on eBay.
I did a whatnot channel. Right.
Yeah.
At breaking, I'd never done breaking. Breaking is highly addictive. I discourage you from getting involved. But the fun with breaking is I live kind of a rural area. I don't have a card shop around me. So if you just want to get some cards, you can go down to Walmart, but may or may not have a great selection or may not have any cards. But the breaking was very cool. You could, get a single team, and maybe it's, if you got, the Orioles and Jackson Holiday, and you get their team on a random spin, and then they're breaking in front of you, and it's exciting.
Exciting. So let's talk about Bowman. Let's talk about the card hobby in general. Now, obviously things have cooled off. There's a lot of people that have come and gone, and you're trying to like cool your jets, but just more or less have fun and not just get too crazy with it, which is good. I think it's healthy to do that. I think we're all trying to do that. I always tell myself I'm trying to do that. I keep shrinking my collection down from, just keeps getting smaller and smaller and more consolidated, but very happy with that. But you're also trying to get rid of as many of the cards as possible. Just keep stuff that matters to you. You like to personally collect Edgar Martinez, right? And maybe some Julio Rodriguez as well. Big Mariner fan, obviously. You're going to be you would say you PC those guys?
Yeah, PC those guys for sure. And I think I have some version of an autograph card of pretty much every significant Mariner on the team right now. So
that's cool.
And a few prospects. Yeah. So cool. Like George Kirby, rookie auto, or Logan Gilbert, or Ty France. They're significant if you're a Mariners fan. Some of those guys might be significant outside of there, but yes.
Right.
Mariners fan first.
The bigger topic to talk, and one of the things we wanted to talk about, what I wanted to talk about with you, and I wanted to get you on the show to talk about, is because last night we went to dinner, and we were talking cards, which is either baseball or cards. One of the two subjects comes up with us. We're always talking about it. and you got really excited. Not a happy excited.
No, a little
Angry
fiery.
excited. You got fiery. And there's two things that really piss off Ken McLean, is from what I know. One of them is bad food, and the other, because he's a foodie, been around him long enough now to know we've out doing stuff constantly, getting food and hanging out. So I know he's a big food guy. If it's not good, there's a problem. And he talks about that problem for a while. It bothers him. It might ruin the evening for him. Or the week. He'll talk about it too later. But the other thing that really pisses you off is sort of like the way people perceive what's valuable in the hobby community. We just had a show, and this is going to launch on Saturday, but we just had a show earlier this week, Taking Stock, with Jeremy Lee, and we were talking about, the tenets of the hobby, what makes things valuable, what doesn't, what are accepted as true autographs, untrue, what's the more valuable card in a hobby, in the hierarchy, the true colors. You know this better than probably everybody else, the true colors, the Bowman Chrome sort of atmosphere. But then you got really keyed up and excited because I asked you some questions about, what do you think of in-person autographs? And then you kind of went on this tangent. You got really excited, then you got really angry about how why certain cars just aren't worth money and some are, and why some of these boxes are so expensive to buy, yet the cards are hardly worth anything in them. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't compute. And you're a numbers guy, you're a spreadsheet guy, and it just irritates you no end that certain cards are worth more than others for no real reason whatsoever, other than the fact that everybody just basically tells you there should be. And you went on a pretty epic rant about that.
Yeah.
I want to try to recapture that and get you mad.
All right.
Why? Why, Ken? Why is that
possible? It's hard to get me mad somewhat. But first of all, let's recreate. Let me go back to the food situation.
Okay.
Dennis, I had already had plans after a long day at school to go and have a nice dinner. And Dennis insists that we need to go to dinner together and decides to go to the cafeteria, which I'm like, all right, fine, we'll go to the cafeteria. We got this little card we're swiping as part of our little pass here. And I hadn't, the dinner, normally there's like 10 stations with Italian food, Asian food, and it's still dorm college food, but it's at least there's some options. But for whatever reason, they knew nobody was coming to dinner except for Dennis and I, so they prepared blackened tilapia and blackened tofu with no options at all. And so I was already pissed before we even started talking about cards. So that may have increased the level of intensity around the cards. But here's what I have to say about, or some of the things I have to say about cards. First of all, I'm not a flipper. I flip cards. But I'm not really collecting. I enjoy cards. I love baseball. I like the sport. I like the organization, like I said earlier, but also the learning about the thing with Bowman that's kind of captured me as much as anything is just learning about all these minor leaguers and their stats and how there's lots of great sites out there that are, delving deep into forecasting who these guys are going to be as major league players. So the research part of it is a big part of why it's a joy to me. It's a pleasure. So that's cool. And then obviously Bowman first with the first logo, it's hard to beat that. You've got somebody's first card produced by Topps. So I get it. I get the value of those cards. But part of what's frustrating to me is that there's this monopoly in the world. So going back to last year, and I'm really just fresh getting into Bowman and then Topps, and then Topps is so boring. The cards are just base Topps, and you got a 650 card set or something. Most of them are completely worthless cards, and so I know you like kind of the junk wax era, Dennis, with 87, and I'm nostalgic for that because I collected it. But I really got hooked by the 90s stuff when 89 Upper Deck and then later on came out. And then you had all these different designs, kind of limited print runs, high production qualities. And Topps is none of that. It's boring, same old white background card. Every once in a while you get a little insert, which is worthless. Every once in a while you get some color, which could be worth something, but few and far between. And then the debacle with Topps Chrome. I'm looking for Julio rookies. Can't get Julio rookies. Now I'm going to get my silver pack. silver pack has crap in it. I mean, you go on a break site and watch them open 200 silver packs, get not a single card of value. That was really frustrating. And then, so that's one thing with Topps, specifically with Topps, more than with Bowman. I know they're the same company, but the brand Topps. The other thing is Panini makes some nice stuff. I know that they don't have the licensing, but there's some cool cards. I bought some National Treasures. I bought some Flawless. There's some super cool cards, and they have some value. It's not like they're without value, but nothing compared to the licensed product. And again, I understand the reason for that. But in terms of it being beneficial to the hobby, the lack of competition in the hobby is not beneficial. It reduces the quality of the product. If Topps/Fanatics has the corner on the market, then they can charge what they want, and they don't have to have the innovation that Panini that brings to the table. They honestly, I mean, almost anything from, I can't think of anything as boring as Topps in any Panini release, and that's frustrating to me. That if as a person who's not just trying to buy cards to see if I can resell them at a better value, but actually I want quality cards, but I don't want to waste my money. I don't want to just buy something because I think it looks cool. But
Right.
but what you thought was the case, or what everybody thinks is the case, is that scarcity combined with quality combined with collectability of the player is what creates value. But that formula is not really true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think there's and I know you mentioned this. So you have a real problem with this monopoly that's been created by Topps, by Fanatics, buying up the competition basically.
You have to have. I mean, Bowman first is the card to have for the prospect, and Topps is the card to have for the rookie. You know, whether it's Topps Chrome or regular Topps or a short print Topps. And I'm not even asking that cease to exist. That's probably going to remain a reality, whether I like it or not. I just feel like the opportunity to have innovation is going to be completely squelched. The other thing that's happened is that, you know, you came into this, you know, era of collecting earlier than I, so you saw the peak. I came in sort of on the downside, and it's continued down, but not, the interest hasn't waned. The money coming in is probably greater than ever. So the, you know, our Bowman first card from 2019 Julio year versus 2023 Bowman first card, the production is way up. It's ramped up, but the price of those boxes hasn't. So where's the actual value? I mean, you look back, and are we going to say 10 years, 20 years from now, like we look back at the 90s cards? You know, Dennis, you've got some really sweet 90s cards that have value because they were limited production, because of the production value of the actual card, how cool it looks. I mean, your Griffeys or your Kobe's, I mean, that's part of what's awesome about it. And you know, so I think there's value now. Some value is sort of declining, but you know, that's the cards to have, and you can resell them right now. But if you're a long-term collector and you're not just trying to flip, and it's hard to flip in a declining market anyway, I don't think the value's there. And you've got, even if you say, well, Bowman and Topps are the way to go, like you have to have Bowman and Topps because they're the licensed products. Okay, fine. But they make other things other than Bowman Chrome Draft and Bowman Hobby, or, you know, Topps and Topps Chrome. There's Transcendent, that, you know, we'll talk about that a little bit in a minute, but Best, Platinum, Bowman Inception, which is actually really cool cards. I like them quite a bit. Sterling, you know, Sterling is, you know, they're kind of repetitive in their design, but you're getting autos out of there. They're nice cards, but the value comparatively is, you know, 50%, 25% of Bowman, and of, you know, the Bowman sets that you're supposed to collect. But the print runs, the scarcity is actually more on all of those sets compared to regular Bowman. So I don't know in the long run if the value's there on regular Bowman. And I know that the baseball card gods or whatever, the collectors have deemed these are the ones you must have. But I don't know in long term if that's a very good strategy, because it's like we're back in the 80s junk wax era in terms of production. The quality of the card's way better, but I don't know if the long-term value is going to be there. One other thing I'll say, and then I'll let you go. But the other thing, the one thing that is remaining the same somewhat is the colored cards, right? You can't, you know, if it's a blue, it's numbered to 150. If it's gold, it's numbered to 50. But even that has been modified by the parallels versions of gold or parallel versions of blue, so that now it's really not 50 for a gold. It's more like 150 because of the 3 different versions of gold that you can get.
So, I mean, it sounds like the Bowman Chrome market is still geared towards the investor, the person, the prospector, the person who's gambling, so to speak. But in the sterling and all that product is maybe geared more towards the collector. That's kind of how I've always looked at it. But you argue that because you say the price of the box just to get that product doesn't compute because you're basically paying so much money for those products still yet, right?
I mean, maybe you're right about the collector versus the investor, but it's like nobody wants to say, well, I'm going to buy a $400 box and I'm going to get 200 worth of value. I mean, nobody wants to say that. And honestly, right now, you're saying that no matter what you're buying. I mean, if you buy a box of 23 Bowman, unless you just pull a massive hit and then you flip it before that prospect, fades away, or, maybe they make it, but you don't want to pay that much money just to lose the value in the card. Immediately you're under value. That doesn't feel good, even if you are collecting. I know you want to say, well, I don't care. I'm just collecting this. But if you're opening boxes, or if you're doing breaks, I mean, even worse if you're doing breaks, because you're technically paying more per card than you are in just buying your own boxes. You have some potential on a gamble that maybe you roll the dice and you pull one hot team and you get the hot card out of your break. That there is a potential, but odds are, the house is winning on your breaks because they have to mark up. The breakers have to mark up.
All right, let's talk about grading. What are your thoughts on grades in PSA and how consistent they are with their grades? What's your experience been like working with them?
Well, I just
not just PSA, but just any grader in general.
Well, I'm going to start with PSA, which I just saw that means please send again.
Oh, is that right?
Have you heard that? I just saw it on a blog post the other day. PSA meaning please send again. And that post, which I'll comment on that post, because the guy had sent in his Bowman cards. They got 9s and 8s. He cracked them, resent in the exact same cards, and got 10s.
So all comes down to the grader.
I don't know what it comes down to. I have the same experience. Okay, here's my experience with grading. Now you're getting me, Dennis. Now you're getting me. Okay, so March of last year, Bowman 22 comes out. I'm brand new, but I'm getting excited. I got some boxes. I got 2 boxes, I think, of Bowman 22. And I pull an orange card, numbered to 25. Gosh, I can't remember who it was now, but I'm like, oh
Julio.
Man,
wasn't it Julio?
No, I didn't get a Julio. I wish I got a Julio. But I'm like pumped. I got a numbered to 25 card, and then there were a couple other numbered cards. So I went nuts. I'm like, wow, this is the rarest card ever, and it's a moderate prospect. I feel like it was like a Christian Hernandez. So I figure out the Bowman or the PSA grading. I pay my $100 to be a PSA member so I can get the deal, and then I send in my cards randomly. And I get my grades back, but it took a long time. I mean, early last year, PSA was taking a lot longer. So I got my grades, and they're kind of all over the board. And I mean, nothing's like I think I did have. I had the only Khalil Watson. It's a population 1. Khalil Watson, first Chrome, PSA 6, and it's for sale right now. The way lower population than any other Khalil Watson on the market. So there's going to be a premium for that card.
The PSA 6.
Yeah,
what made it a 6?
You look at the card, I have no idea, which is another frustrating thing about grading from PSA. I know that Beckett gives you some reasoning, but it's just arbitrary. You just come back with a number. I mean, why didn't somebody invent like computerized grading? Take out the human error. I mean, there's got to be a laser way to grade that card and say, hey, here's the corners rating, here's the edges, here's the centering, here's the print lines, whatever it is. I mean, you should get especially, I know you're not paying a lot, but you're paying a lot to get graded, and they're going to mark it up as a card value that you're sending. If you're not sending in a $10 Khalil Watson card, you're going to pay a little bit more. But anyway, I was learning, but so I talk. I'm trying to educate myself, so I go in and talk to some people who know what they're doing on grading. You gave me some advice, and so I buy the jeweler's loop. In fact, I got two of them, one for Ben, my 14-year-old. And so the next set of stuff, first of all, we were a little more discriminating about what to send in, not $10 cards, maybe, not the best thing to grade. And then we, and then we looked, we looked at every corner. We spent 2 hours sending in 20 cards, looking at everything. And the grades are still random. Like you get them back and it's like, I don't know. So one person said I put some stuff on Instagram. I'm like, why the heck? What's the matter with this? I'm like, well, sometimes if a card has a dimple, it's an automatic 8. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's the case. I don't know. Maybe everything could be perfect, but it has a dimple somewhere and it's an 8. So I scanned over the cards and I see no dimple. So I don't know. I haven't tried, but I've heard from a number of people now that they've cracked them, send them back. Well, that's frustrating. So the most recent frustrating thing for me on that is I have an actual legit cool card of a red first Chase DeLauder auto. He's a great prospect. I know he was out for a year, but there's lots of hype around him coming out of college, and then he's pretty much blown it up, done a great job since he started, I think, mid-June. And I sent that card in, came straight out of a pack. I cleaned it. I looked at it. I did everything I could. It looked great to me. Came back as an 8.5. And I had to pay more for that card because of its, what I estimated its value, which is a whole nother frustrating thing. I estimate the value. They're going to say, oh, yeah, that's fine. If they give me an 8.5, I don't get a discount to what the value is now. But if it goes the other way, it's a 10 and it's worth more than the price point I put it at, they're going to charge me. So that's kind of irritating, minor irritation.
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I will go back and say there is a computerized AI, so to speak, grading, and that's tag grading. My friend Jeremy Lee's affiliated with them. It's called TAG. Not that we're sponsored or anything like that, but they are. I'll throw a little plug out there. They do have that type of grading. So if you
how about the what do they give you at the end in terms of certification on tag from tag?
I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Jeremy about that.
So another thing that I think, if anybody cares about my opinion, is that it would be nice. You're not just doing it to get the grade. That's a big reason, but you're also trying to make a slab. And I think that the slab shouldn't have a little tiny piece of paper that looks like it's printed on a dot matrix printer from the 1980s. Give me something cool on there that I don't know, represents the value that you thought it was worth grading for in the first place.
Well, again, Tag's got a pretty cool slab. I think SGC slabs are pretty cool. I like PSA for the sense that it carries the most value. It's most value,
but that goes back to our whole conversation here. Tag may be vastly superior, way more objective, because it's precise, because of AI and whatever it's doing in terms of its computer grading. But nobody cares because the industry doesn't recognize it. And that's kind of goes back to my main point of what I'm saying. Well, it's got to be Bowman first. It can only be a Topps Chrome rookie. Well, why? Why is that the case?
Folks, Ken is challenging everything. Ken is decided. He chose violence when it comes to the hobby today and last night. And I wanted to capture this. I was like, we're doing it right after class because you got all this energy.
That's
it's
right.
all pent up. You got to let it out. And there's going to be folks in the comment section when we launch this video that are going to agree with you. They're going to be like, yeah, that's exactly how the rest of us feel. Some people are going to be like, yeah, we'll get over it. That's just the way it is. Others are like, yeah, well, welcome to the club. That's how we all feel. There's going to be a bevy of opinions, which is you're never short on that. But I did feel it was important to kind of get a collector's mindset of the hobby right now with the Fanatics, Topps, the redemptions. Talk to me about your redemption story with Topps. How's that been for you?
Oh gosh, you're hitting all my hot buttons. Oh, the redemptions. Okay, now this is partially my fault, all right? Because I've never had a redemption before. Until all my past collecting, I never got a redemption card to mail in. They were pretty rare to get one back in the day. So I get my redemptions. I assume, okay, I'm going to send in my redemptions, and probably next week there'll be a package in the mail with my card back. All right, so my mistake, incorrect information, incorrect assumption. Topps doesn't. Topps hasn't even finished signing the contract for these people to sign the cards. For pity's sake! All right, so that's problem number one. That was my assumption. But they do set some parameters for you and say, hey, in 4 months, you should have your card. And then you go look online. I'm like, 4 freaking months. Wow, that's insane. But okay, but everybody's online is like, oh, it's way better than Panini. You know, Panini takes 6 months, or you know, who knows if you're ever going to get a card. But Topps, pretty much always they get it in 4 months. Well, I bought Bowman Chrome. That's November of last year. Bowman Draft. That's December of last year, and I haven't even got half of my cards back. And I'm like, okay, what the heck? So I've emailed Topps multiple times. Customer service sucks. I mean, they are non-responsive, or if they do respond, they don't answer your question. I've called them. I've spoken to Topps several times. They are completely unconcerned about my dilemma or my feeling like, you know, I paid for a product in November. It's now August of the next year, almost September in 2 days, and I don't still have half the cards that I have already paid for, and have gone through the whole cycle of they were worth something in March because there was hype around a prospect, and now they went down, or it could have gone the other way. But I'm just saying that 4 months should be the maximum amount of time. I mean, we're not talking. I mean, if you and I both work at banks, we're trying to serve customers. Can you imagine saying, hey, yeah, you know, we appreciate you paying for your mortgage. We'll go ahead and get that filled for you in 11 months, maybe.
Well, I mean, don't you think that's just the privilege of buying that product?
No, it's not a privilege of buying the product. Here's a couple other things. There should be no redemptions of base autos. None.
Why?
If you're gonna wait for the product because and if it's going to be 4 months or 11 months or, you know, who knows? I haven't got half of them yet, so I don't know when I'm going to get them. It should be like, you should be at least have the expectation like, hey, I'm getting a color auto, or I'm getting something that's special, but that's why it's a redemption. If you can't get the person to sign in time for your product release, then don't release it. They already do that. They do Bowman first chromes, and then they don't have an auto because I don't know why they do it, but sometimes they don't have an auto, and then the next release they have the auto, and it's the first auto. It doesn't have the first logo on it, which that kind of sucks. But that's not it. There's more. There's more problems.
Okay.
I decided, well, screw it. Just give me because you can, after 4 months, you can tell Topps like, okay, just give me my substitutes. You can say I'll go through the substitute process, and they'll give you a card of supposed equal value, and they say they look at Beckett and they look at comps on eBay. Okay. In that, they also say you can't request anything, you can't change anything, there's no appeal process. So if you have a Tamar Johnson gold auto and we send you Clark Schmidt, pitcher for the Yankees prospect, no exceptions, no process. No, I'm sorry, that's what it is. So that, you know, I haven't experienced because I haven't got a comp or I haven't got a substitute from them. But the fact that they say that, it's just not customer friendly. And this is what happens when you're a monopoly. You can do whatever you want and say, I'm sorry, you want our product or not? And you're like, well, I guess I do because I don't have any options to get a valuable product other than from you. So fine, it's Topps, Fanatics, Bowman. But this June, early June, I said to Topps, fine. I went in, I changed all of it, request sub. I'll just trust the process. Hopefully they don't screw me. I mean, there are some cool cards that I would like to have, but they're taking too long, and I'm ready to have whatever. Just give me the value. And that was June. It's September. I haven't got any substitutions. So I don't know what the heck they even have a substitute precaution for. They apparently have no autographs at Topps.
So what do they say to you when you talk to them on the phone?
Oh, you know, it can take a long time. Any other questions? That's what they say. So just to finish off this little story, I mean, this last time I called, they send me a little survey. Dear valued customer, thank you for your recent call to customer service. We hope that we have satisfied all of your needs. Please leave a review of how our service benefited you. And I left a review, a scathing review, signed Ken McLean from my bank. And I said, I'm putting my title on here so you know that I'm not just some crazy schlub playing Dungeons and Dragons in the corner or something. Like this is for real. And I received no response. Not even we received your review. We saw your list of demands, your 14-page diatribe. We have analyzed it and we apologize sincerely. And here's a stick of gum from 1987 for you.
They still think you're a schlub.
Yes, they sure do. They sure do. But now that I'm on DPZ, it's going to change.
Yeah, right. I don't know if I have that kind of pull, brother. That's been good, man. I honestly, hopefully this has been cathartic for you. It's been funny for me because I've relived it twice now. I hope everybody out there gets to enjoy Ken. Okay, before we let you go, just because I want this episode to just be a big diatribe from Ken because it's awesome. Can you tell us all the one? This is a really funny story. Tell me the story of you getting a certain autograph when you were a kid and how that went about. Because that's a great story.
Okay,
humorous.
All right, that's a good one. That doesn't get me fired up, but it is a good story. So I grew up in the Seattle area, go down to the Kingdome. Back in those days, all the players had to come out one gate at the end of the game, which was great for getting autographs. I got Jay Buners on his first day as a Mariner after he got traded from the Yankees, and I got lots of autographs that way. But one day I was down with my dad, I had my 87 top set with me actually, and it was Rangers and Mariners, so I had all my Rangers cards, all my Mariners cards, but who I really wanted was Ruben Sierra from the Rangers. And so I'm waiting, I've got to be like 11 years old, 12 years old, something like that. And these three guys come out of the players gate and they're like, no autographs. And I can't see them. And they just push just insistent, no autographs. But somebody goes, that's Ruben Sierra. He's not autographing. So I'm like, oh, that's who I'm here for. I came down here, it's 10:30 at night. My dad's waiting for me. So I take my black pen and I take my 87 Ruben Sierra card and I give all the other cards to my dad and I just follow this guy, it's really three guys that have come out saying no autographs. And I follow them all the way through the crowd and then they're walking down an alley next to the Kingdome. And the guy in the middle, who I assume is Ruben Sierra, turns around and waves at me. He has compassion on this poor little 11-year-old, 12-year-old kid. And he's like, all right, come up. I'll sign for you. Well, when he turns around, it's a white guy, and it's clearly not Ruben Sierra. But the only card that I have in my hand is Ruben Sierra because I gave everything else to my dad, I don't even know where he is at this point. So I'm like, oh. And he's like, well, come on. I'm an autograph for you. So I'm like, oh, shoot. So it's a little ways. Like we're like 25 yards apart or something. So I walk up, and I'm like, here's my card. He's like, do I look like Ruben Sierra to you? So it's Pete Incaviglia, and he takes my card, and I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. And I tried to take my card back, but he's like, no. You took my time. I'm going to be signing your card. So Pete Incaviglia signs Ruben Sierra, not even his own name, which is what I expected him to do. But no, he signs Ruben Sierra on my card. And so I had a Pete Incaviglia Ruben Sierra signed card.
That was awesome. Thank you for sharing that story. That's good. Well, Ken, thanks for joining us today. Can you give us your Instagram handle? Because I know that the folks out there might want to start following you, and maybe you could start like releasing live videos or diatribe stories or whatever.
Edgar Martinez. Yeah, it's Edgar Martinez Collector on Instagram. Cool. And yeah.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for joining us today, guys. I know this is kind of a weird one, but it's actually really fun for me. I hope you enjoyed it, had some laughs, and at poor Ken's Ken's expense. Again, if he was even more, he's such a novice. If he was more experienced, he would have put his handle up there on instead of just Ken. But I
There
guess
you
he's
go.
a pretty simple guy, and we're just going to leave it at that. All right, Ken, thanks for taking some time to jump on the show, and now you get to go have your dinner.
All right. Thanks,
All
Dennis.
right, yeah, take care.